Next topic is HATEOAS. So here we are going to talk about what is and why HATEOAS, and we'll talk about standard W3C defined link relationship standard, and we'll talk about how HATEOAS is being supported in JAX-RS. We'll talk about how we can create URIs using URI info and URI builder classes, and we'll also how we can embed links in XML document, and we'll also how to build the links and how we can actually build link headers. So very important topics. So what is and why HATEOAS? So review of the REST architecture principles. So we talked about addressability, uniform interface, representation oriented, stateless, and HATEOAS, which stands for hypermedia as the engine of application state, and cacheable. So here we're going to actually talk about HATEOAS, which is one of the very important REST architectural principles. Now, before we talk about what HATEOAS is all about, let's talk about the problems in RESTful applications. We know the resources will evolve and change over time. What that means is that URI patterns, meaning addresses, and flow of operations, and state will change. So if the client application is built with a lot of assumptions on these URI patterns and flow of operations and states, it will cause a problem, because if the server application change with URI patterns, flow of operations, and states, then those changes will break the clients, okay? Because the clients are pretty tightly coupled with the server in this respect: URI patterns, flow of operations, and state, right? Okay. So what we need is that we want to minimize this tight coupledness between the server and client regarding URI patterns and flow of operations and states. And basically HATEOAS is to minimize this tight coupledness as much as possible. Okay. So this minimization of the tight coupledness between client and server will allow client and server to evolve independently. So let's talk about the benefits of HATEOAS. It provides a location transparency, and it decouples interaction details. Let's talk about each of these in a bit more detail. First, the location transparency. So we want to minimize the URI addresses exposed to the client as much as possible. So ideally, the only URI the client needs to have is the initial URI to access the application. After that, the subsequent access to the services should be through the embedded links. So if you do that, then there is not that much of tight coupledness between the client and server. Client just needs to access the application by using the initial URI, and after that the URI information is coming from the server as part of the response. So response should actually include the embedded links for the next next page and things like that. The client need to know only logical link names rather than the actual network locations. So if embedded links include logical link names, then client will just use these logical link names rather than the actual link names. So this is an example. Suppose the response contains a link element, and the logical name is next, and the actual URL is this. So this is a logical link name, and this is the actual link location. So if the client is actually using this logical name called next, that's going to be a lot easier for client to actually evolve independently from the client, rather than actually using this concrete link location like a jpassion.com customer/start2 and size2. The client will just use the logical link name called the next. Okay, so again, this is one way to minimize the tight coupledness between client and server. Does this make sense? Okay, so these are examples of location transparency. The decoupling interaction details. So what this link can do is it's guiding the user to, if the user wants to go to, if the client, I should have said, if the client wants to go to the next page with the size of the size 2 and starting point is 2, by having this linked, by having this H reference with this link, basically number of customers that can be exposed to the client is going to be basically built in this link. So in a sense, it's guiding the client in terms of how many clients the client will actually how many actually customers, in this case, client will be able to see. So the number of customers that can be exposed to the client is provided via embedded links, and client doesn't really need to know where is the starting point of the customer and the size of the customers that it wants to actually see, because it is actually embedded inside this link. In a sense, the server will guide the client to display the next page. So location transparency and decoupling interaction details, meaning guiding the client to the next state, is actually the benefits of using HATEOAS. And again, the whole idea is to minimize the coupling between the client and server. Okay, so we talked about the logical links, right? In fact, W3C has defined a standard for these links. In fact, it has a lot more than these 4, but these are important ones. Go to the previous resource in the ordered series of resources. Next is actually going to the next resources in the ordered series of resources. Starting is actually first resource of the this series of resources, and self actually is pointing to the self of self resource. So this is an example. So if you happen to have a link element that contains next, this is basically relationship. That's a keyword, and then the next is representing next resource in the order series of resources, and then the actual URL is actually this actual URL is being invoked through this next. In fact, if you actually go to W3C website on standard relationships, it does have a lot more than this 4. Okay, so these are some of the examples. So we have if you want to actually create a link that contains the actual URL, and then this is actually a logical relationship called the previous. So if you want to go to if you want to allow the user, meaning client, to go to the previous resource, and then this link will be actually used. This is another example, like a customers and orders. Again, these are the logical names. These are not W3C defined logical names, but this is something that you can define. The payment is in fact the W3C defined logical name. So if payment logical link is basically it will go to a particular URL that allows a user, allows the client to actually make a payment. Alright, so the logical names could be something from W3C, such as the next, previous, payment, self, or first, or it could be your own, like a customers and orders. And this logical name will be, and this is the actual URL, and this is a logical relationship name. We'll see some of these examples. Okay, moving forward. So let's talk about the HATEOAS support in JAX-RS. So how to implement HATEOAS? Basically, we want to embed these links in your response documents, whether they are in the form of XML or JSON, and embed links as link header. So the response could have a header called the link, and that link header could be used by the client to find out the logical name as well as the actual link. Okay, so JAX-RS support of HATEOAS. So JAX-RS does not really have a built-in support of HATEOAS at the framework level, but it does provide some helper classes for building URIs. So we have seen examples of building URIs using URI info class and URI builder class, and we'll take a look at how we can use these classes to create a URI. The JAX-RS also provides a link and link builder classes for building links, and it also provides link.jaxb adapter class, which can be used to embed links within JAXB annotated class. So we're going to actually take a look at all these examples, all this the JAX-RS support in the rest of the presentation. So let's start with how we can build URIs with URI builder and URI info classes. Okay, so URI builder class is used for building URIs, and basically we can actually see that example in the following slide. Without URI builder class, you have to use the java.net URI class, which is not that convenient to build URI. Okay, so that's the reason we have a URI builder class introduced as part of the JAX-RS. Okay. URI info class is providing base URI information. In fact, this could be injected, right? This could be injected in your application. Okay. All right, so let's see examples of this. So this URI object will be injected if you're using @context annotation, right? And then you can call getRequestURI method of the URI info object. Basically, it will give you the URL of the request. Okay, and then you are going to create URI builder object. You're going to actually use the static method of from URI, passing the request URI, and then you get the URI builder object. And then you can also add path. You can call the path method to add ID. In this case is variable ID, and then you should be able to use the build method to create the final URI. So in this case, if I want to actually use the concrete ID value for this variable, so in this case we're going to actually call build method, passing the actual value, in this case 4, and then so it will build in this case localhost 8080/resources/customers and /4. Okay, so this is creating, remember that when you are creating a brand new item, you want to set the location field to the URI of newly created item, right? So this is newly created items URI, and example could be something like this. Okay. Okay, so that is a URI builder and URI info example. And you can also add a query param as well. So suppose if you have a URI builder, in this case, we get that URI builder object by calling get absolute path builder object, and here you can actually add the multiple request parameters. So here start equal 2 and size equal 3, something like that. Okay. So URI builder and URI info basically are used to create the URI. Okay. All right, so let's do exercise 1. So exercise 1 is basically we are going to, let's actually run this application. And in the meantime, let's see. Okay, so exercise 1 is once you got this one, we are going to click it, and then it will return the URL. Okay, all right, so if you click this guy, it will just return URI. Okay, and also if you actually add another user, Sang nh 77 777 whatever, add the user, and then again it should actually have URI information the location field. So I think that's something that we actually did this in the morning as well, right? When you create a brand new item, the location field is set with the new URI. Okay. All right. So since we have done that, we're gonna just move forward, and then yeah. So okay. So if you take a look at the code again, here we have URI info object injected through the context annotation. And here we are building URI. You get the URI builder object by using URI info. We can call get request URI, and then we are actually the passing ID to the actual value of it, and then toString, and then we actually respond back. That's what what you're actually seeing right here. Okay. In the case of creating a new user, in this case, we're basically using form param here, form param. So create a brand new user, we set the ID, and then again we actually getting the URI builder, and we actually pass the we are adding this index path, and then we are setting that index value with this guy get user get ID. Okay. Okay. So for your own exercise, add the following code to the getUser method and observe the output on the console. Basically, you are looking at various other methods that you can use. Okay, and then replace URI get request URI using base URI and get path. So the combination of these two should be actually the same, as this guy. All right, so it's just an exercise to play around with the methods of URI info. Okay, so I'll give you about 5 to 10 minutes. Try exercise 1 here.